So you're thinking of buying in Colorado right now? Well, in this video, we're gonna be talking about how tariffs can affect the housing market. And you're gonna wanna stick around into the end because we're gonna give you some really helpful tips for buyers in this market. I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor specializing in Salida, Colorado. And with me is my preferred lender, Jess Fisher with Peakview Mortgage. And we're gonna help answer a lot of questions for you and provide some good information about how tariffs can affect the housing market and what mortgage rates are looking like right now. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Like I said, my name is Monica McCarthy, a realtor specializing in Salida, Colorado and surrounding areas. This channel is all about living in Salida, Colorado and the real estate market here. So be sure and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. And so you're the first to know when new informative videos become available. And I get calls all the time from people just like you looking to move here. So whether you're thinking of moving here in a few weeks or a few months, please reach out to me. All my contact information is in the description below, and I'd be happy to help you make a smooth transition to the Salida, Colorado area. And Jess's contact information is below as well if you have any lending questions for him. Okay, so we're gonna talk about how tariffs are affecting the housing market. Right now, we're filming this in mid-February 2025. So tariffs are a very hot topic right now. It is in flux, so we're gonna give you some generalities right now because the specifics are changing daily. The news is very active at the moment. Right now, with tariffs, the big question is, we do know that there are going to be tariffs on some housing materials like steel and aluminum, and how that could potentially affect the housing market because those are construction materials. And what happens if construction materials, building materials for new homes, there's tariffs on them? Could that increase prices? What's gonna happen? So Jess, help me out here. Let's talk a little bit about that. What can people expect right now?
On the tariff side, the biggest impact in particular in the short to midterm is mainly on new construction, or if one of you out there is wanting to buy a used home but are wanting to remodel. So some of the initial concerns when all this kind of talk started happening was mainly the Canada-Mexico relationship. Canada provides the US with the vast majority of imported lumber. So it's still overall a smaller percentage than the lumber that's actually used, but it's enough to make an impact. Mexico provides a lot of the lime and gypsum materials, which is your drywall, your concrete products, that kind of stuff. 70-something% on that as well too, of the amount of imported.
Okay.
So we still make stuff here domestically, the Chinese steel and the aluminum. That's going to create an issue. Some of the stuff that I've read is said potentially an increase around 10% on cost of like appliances. A lot of that steel, whether we get the appliance from Mexico, that steel may have come from China. So just kind of an increase in that, lighting fixtures, that kind of stuff. So even if you are buying a used home and you want to replace the appliances, might want to consider that, or at least check on, how the prices are doing before you decide to redo all the appliances in a new home for you. Overall, kind of the estimation is, like you said, things are moving really quickly.
Yeah.
So there was this idea of tariffs kind of across the board, and now we're kind of an environment where it might be like for like goods.
Yeah.
But that's kind of changing a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I was reading prior to the like for like goods, some articles and stuff like that, was saying potentially a 4 to 6% increase in home building costs over the next 12 months.
Next 12 months. Okay.
So that home building cost then goes, and either it's got to come from somewhere, right?
Totally.
So it's either got to come from the builder's margin, which I think the builder's margin in 2024 was around 11%. Come out of that, they may absorb some of it, but ultimately it would come down to the person that's buying the new home to absorb some of that as well too. The other effect of tariffs that we could see is putting more strain on domestic production. These factories and industries are probably, I don't know what they're doing right now, but I'm guessing they're ramping up. But can the supply chain that's domestically handle that?
It's a huge one, unknown right now.
Yeah, it's just an unknown. How does our supply chain handle the demand? In addition to that, with the demand, we already have an increased demand. We have all those fires out in California. People need to rebuild. Yeah. We had all the hurricane and stuff like that in North Carolina, and those people are needing to rebuild. Yeah. So in the very short term, regardless of what the tariffs actually come to be, just that high demand will create a spike anyways.
In the building material.
In the building materials.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then that translates to the remodel or building a new home. So in the short term, I expect to see a spike. Now, as the market absorbs the idea, looking at it from a non-housing but a stock market perspective, if you go back and look at charts when we implemented tariffs on China during his first term, there was a little dip in the market and then it went back up like nothing really happened. It kind of absorbs it, kind of a lot like how people are absorbing these higher rates. It takes us a while to kind of get used to change.
Yeah.
And so it'll take a little while if these building materials cost more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so that's a good insight into the short term. It could potentially affect new construction, perhaps make it more expensive or even delay like projects that were going to happen might not happen, or they're happening later, or they take longer, that sort of thing. Certainly in our market here in Salida, Colorado, and Colorado in general, we have a lower inventory. And so what does that do over time? So maybe the short term, we're not going to have that immediate effect on the overall housing market, but we continue to not meet our demand by having a low inventory. Where do we end with that?
Yeah. Well,
tell us.
In particular here, when we even go back and look at the housing crisis, we look at COVID in high demand areas, really we see more of a flattening of price than we see a significant dip in price. And I expect to see the same thing here. There has been a little bit of a dip in price in the area, but not substantial. Not substantial. Not enough of a dip to make up for what the rates are. There is enough demand, in particular when there's low inventory. And so if we kind of extrapolate it out in the long term, tariffs may cause people to not build a home, not remodel, maybe more look at used homes because they're not going to absorb that extra cost. But overall, it creates a lot of question. I think from a lot of my clients and talking to some builders and stuff, it's more of just the question mark of how's this all going to play out.
Totally.
So what I think it's going to do is just kind of stall everything for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once either the tariffs go away or we have a clearer picture of all that kind of stuff, I actually predict that used home prices are going to go up because once people get used to the idea or feel more comfortable about the environment that we're in, demand will come out. Maybe I'm being super optimistic, but if Fed's goal is achieved from an inflation standpoint, we're able to bring down rates, that's going to increase demand. So I do think overall home prices are actually going to be going up in the longer term.
Sure, over the next year or so. Yeah. I
mean, in 2024, even though we're sitting at rates in 2024 in the sixes and part of 2024 was in the sevens, home values still increased nationwide by 4.5%.
That's pretty telling.
Yeah.
That the prices actually went up with high rates. So
and again, that's the consumers getting their minds around this change. We're not in a 3.5%, 2.5%. I know somebody had like a 1.5% rate.
I think those days are over, right? Unfortunately, guys.
Those days probably won't come back. I do think that we may see back in the fours though.
Okay, that would be nice eventually. Probably not this year.
Probably not this year.
Yeah.
And part of that is because actually some new CPI data just came out yesterday or day before, and it was looking at inflation. Basically, that's what CPI is measuring. Okay. And inflation was way higher than they expected. They being the Fed. Okay. So likelihood of rate cuts.
Not so much.
Has kind of dwindled.
Yeah, well, that actually segued. That was my next question was, okay, so what does this mean for mortgage rates? Because that's obviously a big question if you're thinking of buying. Have you been holding out for the last 2 years, waiting for rates to go down? Is now the magic time? If you watched us last year, we were talking about rates potentially going down by the end of 2024. Here we are. There's a lot of unpredictable things. Yep. So now, beginning Q1, mid Q1 of 2025, let's talk about rates and what's going on with that.
Yeah, rates are actually at the lowest they've been for 2025.
Okay.
But it's still in the
our month and a half of 2025.
We're still in the high mid sixes.
Yeah.
It's not what a lot of people want, but I would like to remind everyone that if you look at interest rates across the last 40, 50 years, we're actually still below the average. If you want a silver lining, we're still below the average.
Let's have a relative view. I like that. Instead of looking at the last 5 years, let's look at the last 45.
Well, I always say with the market stuff, whether you're talking the stock market or you're talking the housing market, is really when you zoom out, it kind of helps shape a little bit of perspective.
Okay.
When we get kind of micro-focused, that can create a different sense of emotions. I think it gives a better telling overall of what's going on. We are still in a high inflation environment. Mortgage rates are still higher than what I think most people would like them to be, even though they're under the average. We have low inventory. So all that kind of stuff, in addition to the 10-year treasury bonds. So a lot of people think that when the Fed cuts rates, that's going to lower mortgage rates.
Sure.
It doesn't work the way that a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates are more closely tied to the 10-year treasury bond. As that goes up, mortgage rates goes up. And we've been going up and up and up and up since 2020. We've had a couple little dips in there, but for the most part, we've been going up.
Yeah, we were just looking at a chart and it's kind of...
It's up and to the right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Which if you're, if you have a stock, you would love to see it up and to the right. But we don't want to see 10-year treasury bonds yields up and to the right. If they can get those to come down, then that's a closer relationship to mortgage rates.
Okay.
So when the Fed cuts rates, it's on short-term lending, your credit cards, for example.
Gotcha.
However, lenders, the mortgage rate environment does react to the overall sentiment of the Fed. So if the Fed's willing to cut rates, that means the lending environment is becoming less risky.
Okay.
So then the mortgage rates can change a little bit, but there's not really like a ratio to that. It just is like a general kind of feeling.
Sure.
Right?
Rather than a direct.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas with the 10-year treasury, it's not a 1-for-1, but there is a more direct. Anybody out there that's looking for the perfect time to buy, not that I recommend, sitting around and just staring at a 10-year treasury bond chart and just trying to time it perfect.
Yeah.
But if you want to get an overall sense of the environment, that's something that you can look at.
Okay.
Other than just Googling what's the current mortgage rate and charting that out as well too.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, especially if you're looking to buy, they'll often do those mortgage calculators and figure out, what's my price range based on that. And so with that, there's a better way to do it than using a mortgage calculator online. Talk to a human being that can help you, like Jess. Because that's so, what can we do? There's so many things outside of our control right now, and there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of questions, and what we can do are the things that we can control. So if you're thinking that you want to buy a house, you can start getting prepared to do that if you haven't already. And what's something somebody can do?
First, get pre-approved and find a realtor. I mean, that's...
Sure, yeah. Just start getting your ducks in a row.
Having people that have an understanding of the area that they serve. Because, in saying all of this stuff, I've had several clients over the last 3-4 months wait a weekend to put in an offer and that home's gone. Wait a week and then that's home's gone.
Life is still happening out there, guys.
It is. So because there's the low inventory, when the right thing comes on the market in the right price range, it's not necessarily gonna sit for very long.
It's not. Yeah. Certainly not in Salida, Colorado.
Yeah, which is a little bit counterintuitive to what we just talked about: high mortgage rates, home prices going up, all these things. But people still are changing jobs. Their families are growing.
Sure.
All these things are still happening to where they kind of have to buy a house.
Yeah.
They live in a different location.
Or have to sell.
Yeah. Vice versa. So having a borrower or buyer get all their ducks in a row so they are ready to kind of pounce on that opportunity is literally the best thing that can be done. Even if you feel like you're 6 months out, 9 months out, go ahead and get started. There's no cost to getting started. I had somebody who was hesitant to call me the other day because they were afraid that talking to me was going to cost them money. No. We do all the work up front, there's no cost.
We don't get paid till the end. We do a lot of upfront work. So get our free advice, guys.
Yeah, I mean, really. If you're serious about it, get a good feel for the environment that you're wanting to buy in. And that includes talking to people that live there, that work there, and that are in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got questions about the Salida, Colorado market, reach out to me. If you have questions about lending in general, what you're qualified for in Colorado, the whole state really, talk to Jess. He can help you. He works outside of just Salida. Get pre-approved, get your credit run. Maybe you need to remove something off your credit. Maybe you need to save up more for a down payment that can make a difference on your final mortgage payment. There's a lot of stuff you can do early.
Absolutely. And you nailed one of them is save for a down payment.
Yeah.
That there is a difference between putting 10% down and 20% down all the way up 30% down.
Yeah.
I mean, these are jumps in rates. And if you can improve your situation 1/8% at a time, that is a lot of money over the life of a 30-year mortgage.
Absolutely. And so that also helps with the rates. Is that something that you're concerned about. So
Improving
more money down.
credit score,
Yeah.
more money down, those kind of things could have a big
Yeah.
impact on.
And then the thing that you like to point out is since everything's unknown, we don't know when the mortgage rates are going to change. But if they go up, right?
Yeah.
What's your little saying on that?
I always say that the right time to buy is when you find the right thing that fits your budget for when you're ready to move. So if you can afford the mortgage rate or the cost of the home, you can afford that for 2 years, 3 years, then go ahead and make the purchase. Rates, if they go to 12%, you're going to be really glad you bought now.
Yeah.
If they go to 4.5%, you refinance.
Thank you. So there's some glimmers of hope out there, guys. Talk to somebody. Don't get stuck in headlines and fear. Get some real information and find out what's good for you and your family, and you'll be in a good spot. Well, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your time, and reach out to either one of us. Our information's below if you need any help. Thanks.